Thank you.
Well, that's wonderful. Since all the educators are here and it's about 6 or 7 after, I'm going to ring the bell and call the Rotary meeting to order. Thank you very much for being here. Welcome to May 14th, 2020 Zoom meeting of the Rotary Club of Des Moines. I'm President Don Flannery. We are very glad that you're visiting with us today. Thank you for being here. As a reminder, we do plan to keep everyone on mute during the meeting unless you're going to be speaking, and then we can open up your mic at that time. I will be the one leading us in the moment of inspiration today. And in addition to that, if you'll indulge me for a couple of minutes, I'd like to combine the inspiration with a short personal story. I know a few weeks ago I had mentioned to you that there was a story behind this bell that I've been using. And to that end, I thought maybe I would incorporate that with the inspiration. I believe it's rather appropriate given the program that we have today honoring educators. Those of you that know me well may have heard me say over the years that I'm the youngest of an old generation. When I was in school and we'd have open house night in grade school, all of my friends thought I brought my grandparents instead of my parents. So yes, I was that kid in school. In addition to that, my mother was also the youngest of an old generation. She was born in the 20s, a child of the Depression. She attended a one-room country schoolhouse in rural Johnson County, not far from the farm where she grew up. She attended this one-room country schoolhouse just down the road, and she loved it. She enjoyed it very much. And my mom was very bright, very, very smart. So much so that one afternoon in October, I believe she would tell the story, that the teacher came up to her and said, you know, Pauline, you're pretty smart. So you're going home today a third grader, but when you come back into school tomorrow morning, I'm going to put you into fourth grade. I guess that was the Depression era equivalent of the gifted and talented program at that time. So she continued going to that school through 8th grade, went off to high school in Lone Tree, Iowa, and graduated with 2 or 3 dozen classmates. Now, the upshot of being pushed ahead a grade meant that when she graduated, she was barely 17 years old. She'd only been 17 for a couple of weeks. The year was 1942. There was a shortage of everything in America, including teachers, particularly teachers that would be willing to serve in these one-room country schoolhouses, of which there were still a lot around the state of Iowa at that time. So Iowa State Teachers College, which is now University of Northern Iowa, saw an opportunity, and they developed what they called the 4-quarter rural, whereby if you showed up in June following high school graduation and agreed to go to school through the summer session and the following year, you could get out in May, 11 months later, with a teaching certificate valid to teach in any of these schools within Iowa. So my mom loved kids. She loved, thought she might enjoy teaching. So she took up you and I on that offer, and she attended teaching school. So by March or April of the next year, she was student teaching in a school in Johnson County. At that time, she was only 17, but the school superintendent for the county approached her and offered her a position. And she accepted the position. She went to sign the contract, and she paused and said, well, I'm only 17. Can I even sign a contract? To which the superintendent replied, oh, don't worry, sweetheart. You're almost 18. I'll make it work, and you just go ahead and we'll deal with the details later. So she signed it and was teaching that September, and she enjoyed it. She loved it. She taught for 7 years. Now, these schools are rather primitive. Not quite Little House on the Prairie, but much closer to that than what we have today. All of them had the front door facing south. The north side of the house, the schoolhouse, always had the chalkboard. And there were windows on the east and the west side to catch the light as it would traverse the sky. There was no indoor plumbing in any of the schools she taught in. They did have electricity, but no furnace. So in the wintertime, when she unlocked the schoolhouse, if it was 15 degrees outside, it was pretty much 15 degrees inside, at least until she got the fire started and the wood burning. So she would teach all 8 grades, 1 through 8, And at times she would have 8 students. Sometimes she'd have 24, 23 students at a time during the course of the year. She was the teacher, the counselor, the, I guess you could say the school nurse. She also had to be the custodian at the end of the day, and the vice principal when discipline was needed. So she did it all, and she enjoyed it very, very much for many years until she married my father and settled in the role of being a farm wife, and she never went back to teaching again. Now, some of you might be wondering, but they're probably too polite to ask, what did she make when she signed that first teaching contract back in 1942? Well, she made the sum of $95 a month. That's what the salary was in 1942. Over the course of a few years, she worked her way up to $145 a month, but she loved it dearly. And when she stopped teaching, she took with her a lot of wonderful memories and one school bell. So that's today's inspiration. So if we can now put up the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd like to continue with that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the 4-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? So at this point in time, I would like to turn the meeting over to past President Skeet Wooten, who is also the awards committee chair, and he will take us through the rest of the program today. So Skeet, go ahead.
Thank you, Don. It's my privilege to have had the opportunity this year to chair the educator or the awards committee, and part of our charge is to award educators. First course, I'd like to recognize our committee members who put in a fair amount of time going over all the applications that we got. But Brian Blankenberg, Eric Fogg, Gloria Gray, Clint Leonard, Heather Stuyvesant, Bob Vedrell, Callian Venkatraman, better known as KV, and you can understand why, and Art Whitmack. But the Educator of the Year Awards is made possible because of the donations that each of you Rotarians make to the Rotary Club of Des Moines Foundation. Your $25 quarterly contribution, as well as weekly contributions, or the annual tumbler money, all go in to help the Educator Awards. Thank you, Rotarians, for your support of this wonderful recognition of teachers in Des Moines. The Educator of the Year Awards have been given out for over 20 years. Winners are chosen by the award committee with input often from previous Educator of the Year recipients. Des Moines Public School teachers are nominated by their school principals. This year, with the help of Tom Earhart and the staff at the Des Moines Public Schools, we received a record 29 applications. Nominated educators respond to an application with a written narrative describing how each of those teachers provide excellence in education. It is a difficult decision for the awards committee, as virtually every applicant is deserving of the award. Each recipient is given a $1,000 classroom stipend. A traveling plaque will go to their school with their name on it, and it will stay in that school for a year. Additionally, for the first time, each honoree will have their picture on a billboard that will travel around the city. So you will get to see them not only in Zoom today, but in 25 to 30 foot selfies on billboards around town. So this year we are honoring 5 educators, 2 from high schools, 1 from a middle school, and 2 elementary school teachers. So I have the pleasure of introducing the first Educator of the Year Award. And it's my privilege to introduce to you Joy Martin, an English language learner instructor at Brubaker Elementary School. Her students are kindergartners to 4th grades, and any newcomers that come to Brubaker. In his letter of recommendation, Mark Adams, Brubaker's principal, wrote that Joy serves the most diverse group of learners at Brubaker. The students and families she serves represent 12 native languages with ties to 21 countries throughout the world. Her instruction is highly engaged, meaningful, and relevant, and she works tirelessly to ensure that the students she serves have their needs met. Joy's been teaching for 30 years, and it's reflected in the success of her students. She stated in her application that she teaches learners from all over the world. I want my students to feel there is a safe and available space where they have a place to get away from a classroom full of students, noises, and a pace that might be too taxing on them at times. Learning a new language, a new culture, new foods, or a new lifestyle can be daunting. And I want them to know there is someone who gets this part of their learning. Someone who gets that they need a place to come to get out of the fray. I am passionately enthusiastic about teaching these students, and I believe that it lets them know that I care. Please join me in recognizing the accomplishments of Joy Martin, Rotary Club of Des Moines Elementary Educator of the Year.
I know it's only like 3 people clapping, but let's clap. We can clap with our screens.
There you go. Is Joy?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Rotary members, family, colleagues, and friends. I'm honored and grateful to be here today. Teaching has been one of the greatest privileges I have had in my life. I have taught in a variety of settings and places over the years, and many of the places haven't been exactly where the average person might be able to go and teach. I've always wanted my life to have a purpose and to do good in the communities where I have lived. I think that John Wesley's quote at the bottom of my email signature page says it best for me. Do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, to all the people you can, as long as you ever can. This is how I try to live my life. This teaching that I do is meaningful to me. I have a heart and passion for these students of mine, whether they're young or older, to not only achieve the learning of language, but to then go on and become great citizens in this place that might have once been unknown to them and is now becoming their new. And sometimes, like was mentioned, the teaching I do is about things that others might not deem as teaching at all, like making sure they know what's in the food that they are eating and keeping a fresh supply of graham crackers and fresh fruit on hand, just in case they need a snack. Like how to dress and find coats and boots and whatever else is needed when the winds of winter begin to blow in Iowa, like how to find other people that they can connect with within their culture. And of late, how to log in and stay connected with their teachers and friends that they are missing. I want them to be able to thrive, not just survive in this place. I want their hearts to find the passion that is inside them so that they can use their voice and continue to pursue their dreams long after they've left me as their teacher. I also just don't want them to survive. I want their families to thrive as well. I've helped parents register for school, taught adult ELL classes, and have tried to provide information about the places where they can find food and clothing. I've helped them fill out job applications and even taken them to interviews. I've tried to help them find citizenship classes and even witness some of them becoming citizens. I'm ever thankful to have been able to teach in this capacity. I haven't engaged in this pursuit all along by myself. I've had some influencers along the way. One of them is my current principal, Mark Adams. From the beginning of my time at Brubaker, Mark has been a believer, not only in the teaching that I do, but also in the community of students and families that I serve. He has also been a believer and a great encourager of me. His kind words and transparent dialogues in our checking in chats bless me in more ways than I can count. Thank you, Mark. I have listened and I am truly honored. I would also like to thank my friend Shirley, who in the beginning of my career saw things in me that at that time I could not see in myself. I would also like to thank my mom for all the stories that she taught me as a child about people who lived in faraway places and in unfathomable cultures that I had no idea about. I believe those stories help shape the way that I teach today. I am truly grateful to Vin Wynn. He had confidence in me as a substitute ELL teacher and hired me when the opportunity arose. His kindness in waiting for the perfect place for me at Brubaker has been a sweet honey to my soul. Thank you, Vin. My husband, David, has also been cheering me on for quite some time. From chaperoning dances with me and my middle school students when we first met to the adventures of lately pursuing an international trip with me to continue to grow and fill my heart. You have been my quiet, steady rock, and I am ever thankful. And last but not least are my kids, Caleb and Hannah. I know growing up, you didn't always think it was so great that when you get home from school, you had a mom who was a teacher as well. But I have been so delighted that the two of you and Miranda have voluntarily come along with me on several teaching adventures. What a delight to my soul. So once again, thank you, Rotary Club of Des Moines. I am humbled and honored to have received this award. Truly, thank you.
Joy, thank you very much. Thank you. Next, Eric will introduce Tim Tutt. Eric, Bog.
Thank you, Skeet. I appreciate that. I also appreciate the comments you made about the quality and quantity of entries we had this year. And I mentioned earlier to you that I think every Rotarian should take a turn in this committee, if only to see what wonderful educators we have throughout the Des Moines area. It's a great experience, and I would recommend it to anybody. People who are good at what they do, really, really good at what they do, end up not needing a last name. Michael, Cher, Bono, Shaq, Skeet, Tyler. That's how we know them. And we all know they're superstars. Fortunately for the Hannawall Elementary students, there are many talented and capable instructors working with them, nowadays even remotely, every day. And then there's Big T. I wish I had a reverb on my computer because I would have got the Big T much more powerfully and deeply mentioned, but Big T. Officially, he's Timothy Tutt, but in halls, classrooms, and homes, he's known as a superstar. No need for a last name. On the job for 31 years, he tackles the challenges of second grade, students ages 7 and 8, using tools like character counts, whole child learning, arts integration, and something special called Big T's point system, where students earn points for, and these are his words, desired behavior. Maybe more importantly, Big T strives to build relationships with students and with their families. He says relationships are, again his words, the most important foundational element to effective teaching. In his spare time, Tim serves on the Plymouth Church homeless team, the Iowa Civil Rights Commission, and as if he doesn't see enough children every day, he's also a foster parent. Adding her endorsement is Hannawall principal Jolene Liebel, who notes Tim's positive impact on hundreds of students and how he continues to challenge himself to be a better teacher. She sees that he pushes students with the appropriate amount of scaffolding. Please join me in congratulating Mr. Timothy Tutt, Hannawall's own Big T.
Woo!
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Rotary, for this recognition. I have to tell you a quick little story. You might want to rescind the award because I listened to you all talking earlier about the grass seed, and we've been doing online learning, and I've been doing lots of messaging, and I think of a story that happened about 2 weeks ago, but it just kind of makes me smile. We were trying to get everyone hooked up with computers in our district, and to get and to have them access an online learning platform called Canvas. And so I was voice messaging parents, and what I wasn't realizing was I wanted the parents and the kids to have access to Canvas. Apparently the voice message came across as cannabis. But oh well, they all got hooked up to the Canvas and it worked out just fine. Thanks for that very, very nice introduction, Mr. Fogg. I am all about establishing relationships. One of the things I'm also going to say as I start this is that my birth father passed away, but I don't say that to garner sympathy. I say that because that was a person who I barely knew. I only met him a couple of times. But because of the fact that that person wasn't there, and I don't say that as to put him down posthumously, not at all. But what happened was I found myself becoming a person who really found the value, even as a child, in relationships, meaningful relationships. I also am so lucky that when I moved from Kentucky to Iowa as a second grader, when my mom remarried, I had a teacher in second grade and a teacher in fifth grade in Davenport, Iowa, at Jefferson Elementary School, that were very nurturing. They really took the time to get to know not just me, but all the students, because they realized something that sometimes people forget. If you get into something, you get out of something what you put into it. So if you invest yourself into those meaningful relationships, working relationships and friendships with others, it comes back to you. Because of that, I really feel that I've been lucky to have very few major discipline problems. Okay, yeah, at the beginning of the year when they're testing me. But the thing is, the kids see that, wait a minute, he's upset. But if I ever got upset at a student, I also give them a compliment at the same time. Actually, I do that first. For example, you are so smart. I don't know why you choose to not do this assignment because you have got it. I just need to see it. That's the kind of stuff that I do. And it really pays rewards. I am so pleased that I have a class of learners every year and they grow. I'm also, some people think that I don't really micromanage. I'm terrible at micromanaging, but when I score assessments, I'm number crunching like crazy, and I'm trying to figure out what can I do differently to help that student out. And so I feel like again, as I put that investment into a student, in so many ways, it comes back and makes my job that much easier and that much more rewarding. Again, I thank all of you in the Rotary, but I also want to thank some people for the recognition. But I want to thank some people who helped me during some very tough times these past 10 or 20 years. And some of them are on the call right now. One person I want to recognize is a person who I babysat when his mother and I were students working at a bakery at college, and I got paid $5 a week. She was broke and I needed the money. Well, that was 32 or 33 years ago. He is now a dad of 2 people, and I am so proud of him. His name is Scott. He's out there somewhere.
Congrats, Tim.
Hey, love you, buddy.
Love you.
And many years ago, I was. Oh, there's Uncle Michael. Yes, indeed. And one year, many years ago, I had my dream offer. I worked for Des Moines schools, but I was really hoping to go back to Eastern Iowa because I have relatives in the Quad Cities and in Cedar Rapids, and some of them are on this call too. And it was the dream job. But he said to me as a 4th grader, he said it really in a soft, shy voice. He said, Tim, you're the closest person to a dad I've ever had. And so I thought, oh, wow. Mom heard that. She was right across the room. Then I talked to another friend of mine who was a teacher at Hubble Elementary back in the day. And he was a foster parent, and he also had children by birth. And I said, I don't know what to do. This person said this, and I think about my father who had passed. And I thought, should I take this job in Iowa City, or should I stay here? He said, stay here, because you will never understand what you are doing in his life, and the rewards will show much later. So I would like to introduce you to some of those wonderful rewards. Over here, Hopi, is my granddaughter, Hopi. She's going to be 4 in a couple of weeks. And my other granddaughter, Haley. And then Scott's wife, Julie.
Hello.
And then the mom that nighttime babysitter.
Oh, geez.
Lori. I love you guys all so much. So thanks again, Rotary, for recognizing my efforts. Sometimes they're a little unconventional, non-traditional, but the bottom line is it's all about the students. I totally get that. And I continue 31 years later to love going to work every day, even though the challenges sometimes are insurmountable. But again, when I put something into it, I love seeing the rewards come out of it, and that makes me love life day to day and my job as well. Thank you again.
Thank you, Big T. That's wonderful. Our middle school Rotary Club of Des Moines Educator of the Year is Timothy Berger, who teaches 6th grade math and science at Brody Middle School. In Tim's nomination letter, Thomas Hoffman, who is Brody's principal, wrote, and I quote, "Tim is an established, effective, and student-centered classroom teacher who regularly goes above and beyond to ensure a quality learning experience for his students. He is a consistent advocate and teacher leader to ensure that our students are enriched by the relevant connections he makes for students in this classroom, and that he readily connects his teaching across the curriculum as an active peer leader to improve how students engage in learning. He frequently finds new and innovative ways to ensure that students make meaningful connections and his students consistently perform to his high expectations," close quote. Tim has been teaching for 19 years, 9 in his current position. A couple of things stood out to me in his application. He wrote that he, and I'm quoting here, "he makes a genuine effort to see that every student learns something in his classroom every day," which is very basic, but also absolutely profound. He tries to put science and math in the hands of his students, seeing how things succeed, but also how they fail, and the importance of failure in learning, picking up the pieces and finding a way to succeed. He also said it needs to be fun, and his classroom is a place of fun and humor. He teaches his charges the importance of setting goals and working with them to achieve those goals. It is my honor to present to you Timothy Berger, the Rotary Club of Des Moines Middle School Educator of the Year. Congratulations, Tim.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm extremely honored and humbled to be the recipient of this prestigious award. Thank you to the Rotary Club of Des Moines for acknowledging the work of DMPS educators. There are so many colleagues that I've had the privilege of working with over the past 19 years that are just as worthy of receiving this award. Thank you to Mr. Hoffman and the Brody administrative team for nominating me for this award. Your leadership, support, high expectations, and vision for growth is the foundation that makes the incredible work of the Brody staff possible. I must thank my colleagues for their hard work, dedication, and professionalism. Teaching is a collaborative effort, and I would not be the teacher that I am without their commitment to the team. I want to thank Des Moines Public Schools for supporting students and staff and being a leader in urban education. Thank you to my family, for supporting me in my career and allowing me to do what I love. And finally, I need to thank my students. They inspire and push me to be better every day for them. It's hard to believe that I have been in education for 19 years. My passion for teaching grows more and more with each academic year. There's no occupation that has an impact on the community like teaching does. Every August, a new group of students enters the classroom looking for guidance and inspiration. This is a great responsibility and certainly not an easy one. Students enter the classroom with varying levels of academic achievement, emotional needs, and unique life circumstances. The ability to build relationships with students is so important, and the personal connections that I make with students will stick with them far longer than the academic lessons I teach each day. As a sixth grade teacher, I know my students are beginning a new chapter in their educational experience as middle schoolers. This is an exciting and often scary time. As they enter the building at the beginning of the year, I see the anxiety and stress on their faces. The greatest concerns are opening their locker, navigating their schedule, finding friends, and simply fitting in. My charge at the beginning of each year is to ensure that students feel welcome and comfortable in this new setting. I know that I must build trust with the students before we can embark on our journey as learners. And as a class, we spend time building relationships, learning about one another, as well as learning how to work effectively in collaborative groups. We focus on our commonalities and our differences, but build on the idea that our community is stronger because of our differences. We learn to respect the differences of each other to become the strong and caring community that will allow us to grow as learners. The best learning takes place when students are involved in building their conceptual understanding of content, implementing lessons in the classroom that allow students to be inquirers brings a higher level of engagement and excitement. Math and science allow students the opportunity to hypothesize, design, experiment, and build. It's amazing to observe students develop a question, hypothesize a solution, design a lab, collect data, and draw a conclusion. Often the results are not what they expected, and it leads to more questions and the cycle starts over. I love it when the results are not what they expected because students learn that it's not always about getting the correct answer, but learning from the process. I want students to embrace the mistakes that they make because mistakes are not bad when they're used as opportunities to learn. I model this by allowing myself to be vulnerable in the classroom. It's important for students to see that I make mistakes too, and that when I do, I own them and use it as an opportunity to learn. I'm not a perfect person or teacher, but every day I'm trying to be better. I want my students to understand that they are not expected to be perfect, that it's all right to make a mistake, and it's an opportunity to learn and become better. I believe in my students' ability to achieve greatness, and I want them to believe that they can become anything they dream with hard work and determination. In closing, thank you to the Rotary Club of Des Moines for this great honor. This recognition has inspired me to want to continue growing as an educator to make the greatest impact possible on the students that I'm blessed to serve. Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you, Tim. Next, I'd like to call on Bob Vedrell to introduce the first of our two high school educators. Bob?
Thank you very much, Steve. I am very honored to introduce Canada Ann Schneider. Miss Canada Schneider has been in the teaching profession for 22 years, 13 of those years at the Central Academy, where she teaches history to the 10th through 12th grades. Canada believes in rigorous student-centered learning, through which inquiry-based learning, she challenges the students' thinking through questions in various scenarios. She strives to have her students question, analyze, and creatively problem solve to expand their knowledge and understanding of the complex world we live in. She is advisor for the Central Academy's Model UN Club. In this work, she has prepared students to participate and compete at the University of Chicago's Model UN Conference. The students have won such awards as Best Oratory, Outstanding Delegation, Honorable Mention, and Verbal Recognition. Outside of her classroom work, Canada was the lead teacher in rewriting the state of Iowa's secondary history curriculum. Every year, she plans an annual trip to Kansas City to visit the Truman Museum and the National World War I Museum with her students. She also has taken students on trips to Denmark, Peru, Italy, and Greece. Canada developed history courses on the history of Latin America and the history of the Middle East and Islam. With students speaking over 100 languages, she wanted courses that would educate the students about the history of other countries and regions of the world. She stated in her application that she feels most proud when my students are active learners that participate both inside and outside of the classroom. The director of the Central Academy, Jessica Goethe, stated in her letter of recommendation that Ms. Snyder fosters and facilitates her students' curiosity about culture and identity into genuine scholarship and career opportunities in an international arena. For all her good works and accomplishments, the Rotary Club of Des Moines is proud to present to Ms. Canada Ann Schneider a 2020 Rotary Educator of the Year Award for High School. Congratulations.
Canada's having some troubles. That was her calling me, so I apologize for that interruption, but she should be on in just a second. So if we'll just give her a minute for some technical difficulties. Andy, if you want to play the technical difficulty music. Well,
I don't know that one. Is that the Jeopardy? Do, 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 do.
Theme from Jeopardy.
Canada, can you hear us?
Hello, I made it back.
Yay!
Sorry about that. I was running all over the house trying to find internet. It just crashed. And so hopefully I'm here for a while.
Wonderful. Well, we just introduced you and had a great introduction.
Thanks. So, okay. First of all, to begin, I'd like to thank the Rotary Club of Des Moines for this prestigious award and for the recognition and for just taking the time and energy to support and acknowledge teachers, especially in times like these. It is especially significant, so thank you very much. I'd also like to take a moment to say thank you to my director, Dr. Gogarty, in nominating me for this award. From starting to teach in a small rural town in Iowa to the urban East High School to Central Academy, Dr. Gogarty is the best leader that I've ever seen. Dr. Gogarty demonstrates her leadership not because of her power, but because of her ability to empower others. Thank you again, Dr. Gogarty. So I'm going to start this with what happened on Tuesday. So on Tuesday, I finally had the opportunity to visit my classroom. And I hadn't been in my classroom since spring break, since the whole COVID pandemic. And as I walked into the classroom, fully covered in a face mask, I immediately felt a mixture of emotions, from longing and sadness to hope and expectation. Here was this beautiful space for my kids to learn, and yet here it was empty. But as I started to consider this more and more and consider how I currently connect with students digitally, I was gently reminded that learning from my students occurs more so outside the classroom than within, noticeably so. In my classroom, I teach students to be historians. How so? I do the stuff of historians. I have demonstrate cause and effect. I have students contextualize. I have students read and interpret primary and secondary sources, how to critically analyze, and most importantly, think for themselves. I do have students read the thoughts of historians. I expect my students to do historical work. I do want students to create and to further grow their historical empathy. I hope my student Sage, who is here with us today, would agree with that. Teaching students to be questioners, analyzers, and critical thinkers, both in and outside of those four classroom walls, is key. My lessons are based on a variety of sources, including photographs, diaries, newspapers, magazines, and individual experiences. Students read historians' perspectives and determine historical context, audience, purpose, and point of view. Additionally, I've been lucky enough to travel to many historical places, bringing my own experiences back to my students. I've traveled to China, I've traveled to Germany, Peru, Mexico, Greece, and Italy. These experiences have not only helped me grow as a person, but as a teacher. I've also assisted students in travel, which has been the most beneficial for me and for my students, seeing my students getting outside of their comfort zone. I've led a student-teacher exchange in Denmark. I've taken students to Peru, Italy, and Greece. As I said before, travel makes the students get outside of their comfort zone and grow as people. This is experiential learning at its best. Even for those students who are unable to travel to places like these, I've created experiences for them. For 13 years, my students have traveled to the National World War I Museum in Kansas City and to the Hoover Presidential Museum in Independence, Missouri. I've sponsored students to close-up trips to Washington, D.C. and for National History Day contests. Students have locally experienced the C-SPAN bus, the Iowa Capitol, the Supreme Court, memorials, and grounds. I've even taken students across the street to Woodlawn Cemetery in order to do research. Because of these travel experiences, my students are further prepared for the world beyond those four classroom walls. They are armed with tools to scrutinize, to question, to connect, to consider, and to create. Last year, I decided to create 2 new classes: the history of Middle East and Islam and the history of Latin America. The reason why I decided to propose those 2 new classes is because of the diversity of our groups of students. It seemed like our students were actually not seeing their history in the courses that were offered. These regional histories have given students new exposure to the diversity of places around the world and its people. It has allowed many of my students to learn about their own histories. As I continue to build these courses, I will use my award money to purchase new texts and resources about these regions. Thank you for listening to me today. As you can tell, I'm very passionate about teaching and my kids, and it's a nice opportunity to be able to talk about them. I want to take a moment and thank my lovely family. I'm sure it's very hard to have not only a mother as a teacher. So I also want to thank Dr. Gogarty again for nominating me for this prestigious award and the Rotary Club of Des Moines for its recognition.
Thank you, Canada. For our last honoree, I'd like to call on Art Whitmack. Art?
Thank you, Skeet. Before I start, I would also like to congratulate Dr. Ahart for the marvelous job he's done in negotiating the education of 33,000 students during this time of unprecedented challenges. So Tom, congratulations to you, your staff, and all of the instructors who found a way to get to 33,000 students in the last month. Well done. On behalf of the committee, it's my privilege to introduce Trevor Stevens, an instructor in the Skilled Trades Academy located at Central Campus. Trevor teaches 9th through 12th graders electrical theory and practice in a hands-on interactive classroom. He played a key role in securing a relationship with a local electrical union, which provides his students access to a well-paid apprenticeship program and a career after graduation. His intention is to expose middle school students to electricity and the electrical trade through a week-long summer camp. And boy, I hope, Trevor, you're able to do that.
Oh, congratulations.
Trevor attended the University of Northern Iowa, securing his degree and teaching license before he himself attended a 5-year apprenticeship program to obtain his electrical license. This unique perspective allows Trevor to provide his students with the pros and the cons of each of those pathways, a formal education or education through an apprenticeship. Trevor's students are fortunate to have an individual who not only provides them with an education and a trade, but also guidance regarding the concerns they may have about their future. Congratulations, Trevor. Well done.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. And thank you to the Rotary Club of Des Moines for having me. I'm honored to be in the presence of these talented and driven educators. When I received an email from the director and assistant director at Central Campus, Tasha Brown and Dr. Lisa Hill, explaining that they had nominated me for the Rotary Club of Des Moines Educator of the Year Award, a magnitude of emotions kind of came over me. Primarily shock, mixed with honor, validation, pride, and a little or a lot of bit of anxiety. See, I'm an educator currently working under my initial teaching license, so I definitely was not expecting something like this. I thought an Educator of the Year award was reserved for longtime educators who have really honed in their practice in their classrooms and not for someone still trying to figure it all out. I finished my student teaching in 2018 with the intentions of working as a high school science teacher. Unexpectedly, and in hindsight, blessedly, I ended up at Central Campus working to build the electricity program. I use the word blessedly because I can't overemphasize how important the instructors and the administrators at Central Campus have been to my growth over this last year. As I'm sure many of you feel about your colleagues, I feel everyone at Central Campus deserves an Educator of the Year award. After all, it's from watching them in their classrooms, building relationships with their students, watching them at their staff meetings, hearing the passion in their voices for their programs, or just in passing, chatting with them about the amazing opportunities and success stories that have come out of their programs that I've learned how to begin to operate my classroom. And I've found the way to operate a classroom at Central Campus is to demonstrate to our students that we care for their future. We're concerned for how they are doing on a personal level, and that we love what we are trying to accomplish together, which is to provide students with intentional, meaningful learning that will prepare them for a life following graduation. So over the past year, this is what I have been working to accomplish in my classroom. A lot of trial and error and a lot of reflection. And I think the expression is imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Well, I believe all my colleagues should be proud and flattered because I really am just imitating all that I've had the pleasure to work with and learn from since arriving at Central Campus. Being nominated has also validated some of my recent life decisions. Like was previously mentioned, from 2011 to 2017, I worked as a journeyman electrician. And I enjoyed my career working, learning, and training others as an electrician. But when individuals would ask how work was going, I would give the typical response such as good or great. And I no longer have to use that type of response. When friends ask how teaching is going, I can't stop talking about my students, the projects we were working on in class, or the connections being created with those students and with local industry leaders. Teaching electricity to high school students has been the most amazing and rewarding experience. I get to work with my students to build our classroom, to find out what excites them about electricity, and then we learn it, we practice it, and we energize it. And during this, they get to build a path towards their future, which is the most fulfilling part. So thank you to everyone who has helped me along the way, to Tasha Brown and Dr. Lisa Hill for the nomination and writing such an encouraging and positive letter, and also for taking a chance on me, to my wife and family for supporting me as I transition back to education, and thank you to the Rotary Club of Des Moines for selecting me to receive this award. I'm shocked and beyond honored. This process has allowed me an opportunity to reflect on my own teaching, acknowledge all the amazing individuals that surround me, validated my decision to return to education, and has provided more of a reason than ever to continue working towards the future and loving it all along the way. So thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Trevor. Well done. Before we adjourn the meeting, I'd like to introduce the superintendent of the Des Moines Public Schools, Dr. Thomas Ahart. Tom has been superintendent in Des Moines since May of 2012. He joined the public schools as a principal at Harding Middle School in 2008, became associate superintendent in 2011. He has also served as Director of Human Resources for the Ankeny Community School District, Director of Instruction in the Marshalltown Community Schools, and as a school improvement consultant for the Heartland Area AEA. And he spent 11 years as a high school teacher. So he definitely has skin in the game. He received his BA in Speech and Mass Communications from the University of Denver, a Master's in Public Administration from Drake, a School Administrator's Certificate through Iowa State University, and an Education Specialist Doctorate in Educational Leadership from Drake University. Tom lives here in Des Moines and has been since 2001. It's my great pleasure to introduce Tom to the Rotary Club of Des Moines. Tom?
Thanks, Skeet. First of all, thank you again to the Rotary Club of Des Moines. We don't do enough as a community to recognize the extremely important and high quality work that our educators are engaged in every day. And as you heard from our awardees today, that work is certainly at least as challenging as it's ever been, and under our current circumstances. We've really tested their patience and their flexibility and their creativity and their dedication, and they have shown up in spades. So thank you for providing this award. And I want to also just call out Skeet Wooten. He really made a concerted effort with the district to ensure that, as you heard from our awardees, this is a very humble group. And sometimes we educators are a bit too humble and don't put ourselves out there for recognition. And so it takes a lot of work to get folks to agree to be nominated. And we did a better job this year, and we'll continue pushing forward so that more of our folks are considered for this prestigious award. So thank you, Rotary Club of Des Moines. We're in unprecedented times. I'm sick and tired of hearing that phrase, but indeed we are. And in Des Moines, I think we've been particularly proactive in trying to take care of our staff and of our students in the face of COVID-19. And we were only able to take those really pretty dramatic efforts because we have a staff comprised of individuals like you've heard from today. I couldn't be more proud of our system, of the team of leaders and educators that we have working on behalf of our 33,000 students and their families. I could go on and on and on about what they've accomplished just in the last 2 months. 2 months is exactly when we went into this new mode of operation. As you might be able to tell from the wall behind me, I'm at home. I've been working from home now for 2 months. It's driving me absolutely crazy, having all of my conversations on Zoom and by telephone. But despite those conditions, our staff have just been bending over backwards to ensure that they're connecting with their students and their families, making sure everyone has what they need. And in addition to pushing forward the academics, making those crucial relationship building moves so that all of our students feel valued and connected and are ready to launch the next school year when we have an opportunity to be back together. I wanted to share just briefly part of a conversation that I've been having with some educators from around the country as I continue to look for resources to forge the best way forward for the district in support of these fantastic teachers that we have. And we ended up having a discussion late one night about The Plague that was written by Albert Camus in 1947, right after World War II. Camus was referring to the plague of Nazism as much as the disease in the plot of the story. Like a bacterium that may lurk for decades in clothing and old papers, demagoguery and totalitarianism can spring from the ground of our forgetfulness. Camus wrote, "The only way to fight the plague is with decency." Why did he say this? He said this because in the face of pestilence, decency redeems not only the individual, but all of humanity. And I was thinking of that as I listened to the remarks of our 5 just extraordinary teachers this afternoon. Perhaps decency is at the root of meeting our goals for education too. For all the libraries of knowledge we have, the how-to savvy of legions of educators, all the committed and giving adults in our field, we cannot unite our country to dramatically improve our education system, use what we know for equity, until decency, the value of decisions and actions for the common good, becomes salient. I really feel like that strikes at the heart of what the Rotary Club is all about, and what we as a district and our fine educators are all about as well. So thank you to our fine educators. I also want to call out Jolene, Mark, Tom, Tasha, and Jessica, those directors and principals that have the privilege of working with these teachers every day, and for their fine leadership. And again, recognize the Rotary Club for all the tremendous good you do for our community and especially for education, especially at a time when we most need it. So thank you very much for giving me a few minutes of time, and thanks for continuing on this great tradition of recognizing outstanding educators.
Thank
you, Tom. I'd like to, in closing, I'd just like to say thank you to the committee again for all the hard work that they put in. I want to thank Tom and Tom's assistant, Brooke Jacobson, who really helped facilitate getting these 29 people to apply, for which these 5 truly outstanding people were awarded today. And just as an aside, I think maybe as an honorary, we should recognize Pauline Flannery. With that, Don, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Skeet. I appreciate it. And thanks to Dr. Ahart for your comments. Thanks to all the committee members on the awards committee. Your service is so appreciated. It's a lot of work, and thank you for taking the time to do it. Thanks to the families and the principals who are here today. Most importantly, congratulations to all of our educators today. You are doing great things to help our young people make the world a better place. I'd also like to thank Graham Gillette for this week's edition of Rotary Films. We sent out the link the other day. If you haven't seen it, please pull it up. It's wonderful work, doing it our way. And Graham, thank you very much. And thanks to all of you who are participating with Graham in the interviews. And it's a great way to stay connected. So please take a look at those when you have a few minutes. Members and guests, please like us on our Facebook page and follow us and share the good news Club 27 does in the community and the world. We did live stream this meeting today, and we will be doing so next week when we honor our scholarship recipients. So I hope you can make that meeting as well. Now, speaking of the upcoming meetings, the next 3 meetings are Zoom meetings. We will have on May 21st, next week, our local scholarships. That's when we'll be giving away 6 scholarships to a graduating senior from each of the 6 Des Moines high schools. So hopefully you can make that meeting. On May 28th, we have the beauty and functionality of the Krause Gateway Center. Nikki DePhillips is with Come and Go, and she'll be talking about the new architecture and the new building they have downtown. On June 4th, we have Joe Parsons, President and CEO of the Iowa Interstate Railroad. Should be a very interesting presentation on June 4th. So hopefully you can make all 3 of those. It's 1 o'clock or a couple minutes later. Thank you very much for being here today. Thank you for being Rotarians. Thank you for choosing to be here today. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you.